Dr. Frank, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Courage. I finished your book, and I don't think it should be called To Be Loved. I think it should be called How to Find the Courage, because
Ah,
you have an enormous amount of courage. How did you not let fear stop you from opening up Pandora's box?
yeah. You mean in writing or in my life? Those are two different
Well, I
questions, right?
guess it's two separate questions in
That's
itself.
right.
So let's say in the writing, were there moments when you're writing in your book, you're like, you had to have like delete, 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 and then let's just put it back.
Well, it's interesting. I didn't delete. What I did was have this evolution of truth. That's the way I experienced it. When I was first asked to write a memoir, I kind of thought, me? Why should I be writing a memoir? That's kind of crazy. And then they said, you have this story to tell, and we think your story will help people heal from their trauma. So that made sense to me. And when I started writing these moments, it was like a collection of moments. There were these choice points like, am I going to tell the truth? And as you read the story, most of my life, I was raised to suppress myself and not be me in order to fit in and be quote normal. So there was these choice points many times throughout the book, like, am I going to do more of the same and not be me and not be honest and not be truthful? Or part of the healing is to be honest and truthful. And that's what I did. I did have these panic moments. I'll tell you, like, I cannot believe I'm saying this right now. But by and large, I'm like, if this is going to help people know that we're all the same, we all have similar experiences, good and bad, then it was worth it. So now it's out there. Now it's out there.
Love, love, Dr. Frank. How do you define it at this stage in your life?
Authenticity and connection. That's the way I would define love. I think love is kind of being aligned with your truth, who you really are, and the capacity to share that with somebody in love, in connection. So I kind of feel like it's this combination internal. Can I really accept all the parts of me? Can I love all of me? And am I brave enough? Can I share it with somebody else? And am I okay in regards to me and to them? And I think it's all about connection, honestly. I really do.
In your book, you talk about the abuse that you
Yep.
faced at the hands of your dad.
Yep.
Trauma, generational trauma, abuse tends to be generational.
Yep.
What was his dad like?
Oh, man, that's a great question. Nobody's ever asked me that before. His dad was one of my safe people, interestingly enough. His dad, my grandpa Ross, was one of my safe people. He is somebody who loved me. He is somebody who saw me. So it's very interesting that you asked that. Nobody's asked that before.
I'm a smart guy. You're never going to meet anybody like me.
That's probably true. I believe that, right? The thing for him was probably his mom. I would say part of my dad's transgenerational kind of trauma was twofold. One is he had a very critical mother who had very high standards for all of her kids. And second, my dad had rheumatic fever when he was a child. He was sickly and he had to go to all these special schools growing up. So I think he held stuff more relative to his mom than his dad. It's interesting. So my dad was kind of violent and controlling. My mom was passive and accommodating, right? He had the reverse. His mom was violent and controlling. I don't know that she was violent. I know she was mean and controlling. And his dad was passive. So we kind of had reverse stories in that way.
Being a father now yourself, how different are you?
I'm very different now than I was when I started the parenting journey, that's for sure, right? I can really tolerate and hold anger. I'm so accepting of who these kids are, separate from who I need or want them to be. I started the parenting journey primarily to give a kid what I never got. Like it was that makeup story, so to speak, right? I think a lot of us do that. I certainly was one of them. And, as I talk about in the book, I started becoming my father with my children, which was mortifying. Like, it's the moments I was suicidal in my life is when I started yelling and screaming, not exactly, but in similar ways that happened to me. That was way too much. And I did, once again, do my work, heal my trauma so that I didn't feel my kids' anger and volatility triggered me or scared me because of my dad's history. And I was able to tolerate their anger in a way that wasn't abusive. It was about kids trying to help them regulate their emotions. So it was a very complicated dynamic. Parents lose it when kids are dysregulated. And I certainly did that, right? But I don't do that anymore.
So what's more complicated for you, being a father or your work?
Oh my gosh, being a father is 1,000 times more complicated. Like, I've been doing this work since 1992, and I feel like I know trauma backwards and forwards. I can work with people in very horrific things, and there's that distance that's created as the therapist helping people. I have learned so much from my kids, well beyond what I ever thought was possible. I kind of feel like you get the kid you need, not the kid you want. These were not the boys I wanted by any means. And they know that, right? Like, in the most loving way. But boy, did they help me heal my relationship with my father. Did they help me heal my relationship with myself? There's nobody who's I've grown more in my life, even outside of therapy, honestly, than with my two boys, for
They
sure.
they changed things inside of you. So was it this, like, they say progress, you don't see progress. You look back and you're like, "Well, we came a long way." Like, what's it been like for you looking at this progress as you look back over your life and over your career?
Yeah. It's been quite a journey, that's for sure. Never in a million years where I was then did I ever think I would be here now. Like, it's unfathomable for me to to see where my life is. So, I feel really great about it. I feel really good about who I am now. I love myself. I'm confident. I feel really good about the way I've parented and what I've given. I feel really great about my relationship.
Sounds like you're a learner.
Oh, constantly. I use the word resilience a lot because there is this term people throw around, resilience. I don't know that we quite know what it means. All I can tell you is that I have this drive, Dustin, inside of me constantly. I've had it since I was a little kid. I'd wake up early in the morning to do my homework so I would get it done. Like, I've had this constant drive inside of me to better myself no matter what. And maybe that was because of my trauma, maybe it wasn't. But whatever that resilience thing is, I do have it and I'll always be doing that. I mean, I kind of think that's who I am. I don't know if you can teach it.
How are your dreams? What are they like?
That's a good question. Also, I used to have nightmares like crazy most of my childhood. I had tons of nightmares, wake up screaming in the middle of the night. Now, my dreams, honestly, are pretty spiritual. I really connect to a higher power when I dream. I get messages, I get downloads, I get direction when I sleep. I feel very open to my purpose and I learn a lot. I learn a lot at night and I get a lot of direction at night. I'm at peace. I don't have any trauma dreams anymore, that's for sure.
It sounds like you've had one heck of a self-care plan.
Yeah. You know what? Somebody asked me, how many years have you been in therapy? Like, when I added them all up, 33. That's a hell of a long time in therapy. 33 years of therapy. Yeah.
Now I gotta ask, because in the book you talked about your first marriage was
Yeah.
to a woman,
Yep.
your second marriage was to a man.
Yes.
Tell me, how different is it being married to a man or a woman? What's the differences?
Oh my gosh. They're almost non comparable for
Has
me.
anybody ever asked you that question?
No.
Okay, good. I've got like two that Dr. Frank's like, I like Dustin. Check the box.
That's right. They're uncomparable for me. Okay. I grew up, I learned how to act like a normal boy. I went into this conversion therapy. So I did all the right things. I used to watch my uncles to see how they acted, to know how a man was supposed to act. So I married a woman. I did all the stuff. I had sex with her. It was kind of like an automatic life, an as if life. I was living my life based on what I thought I was supposed to be doing. And it had nothing to do with emotion, nothing to do with love at all. And the first time, honestly, that I was with a man after I came out and divorced my wife, I was like, oh my God, it's kind of like two-dimensional black and white into three-dimensional color. Like my whole experience exploded. It's like, oh, this is what everybody's so excited about. Wow, this is what like sex and love together can feel like. This is what opening yourself up to. Like, really, it was so dramatically different. Like, I could go through the motions as a man with a woman, fine. But being in relationship with somebody where emotion is involved, where your heart as well as your body is involved, was a game changer for me. Like, it was so dramatically different.
Intimacy, like, what does it look like today? How do you define it?
Yeah. I define intimacy in two ways. It's kind of play on words, into me, see. Into me, see, right? It is that, who am I? Can I? Intimacy is more internal first. Do I have the capacity to know me and accept me? Most people don't. Most people disconnect. So the first step in intimacy is that cliche self love, self acceptance. And then, and then it's the risking of sharing all of you with somebody else and finding someone where it's truly acceptable, right? I have never experienced my relationship with my husband it's been the most healing relationship of my whole life. Like, truly allows me to be who I am, all of it. That's incredible. Like, that is such a gift. And I don't know how many people truly have that. Like, that's what intimacy is where all of you is truly accepted and vice versa. I have this phrase say, give back better, right? When you receive a gift like that, all you want to do is give it back to the person who gives it to you. Like, it's this positive spiral. And that's what I've experienced in my relationship with my husband.
And what is it like being married to you? Your
Oh,
high performance, I have to ask.
you think I'm
I
high
mean, you must be
performance?
obsessed. Everything you go into, you're like, we're gonna go big. It's like, oh, let's just baby step. You're like, ain't no baby steps.
So
We're
interesting.
going fast.
My husband, we just went back into couples therapy recently, interestingly enough, because of this expansion and this explosion that's happening in my life after I've kind of written this book. There's movie rights already connected to the book. Like, this life is, I'm living in Hollywood right now. I'm living in Beverly Hills. Like, it's a whole different world. And my husband's like, I don't know if I'm going to like this, like you and like this life. Like, but he's never said no to anything I've ever done.
So he's supportive.
He's super
But
supportive.
how do you then, Dr. Frank, how do you keep yourself from, not literally, metaphorically speaking, outgrowing your family? Because if your family continues to be where they are, and call it safety, call it the mundane day to day, and you're out living this life, don't at some point don't you outgrow them?
That's what we're working on. I really, that's what we're working on, is because I did have this huge elevation, expansion, whatever you want to call it. And I don't want to do this without them. I want to bring them along on the ride. And my husband is clear, like, this isn't what I signed up for, at all. So we're working it out. We really are working it out now. Um, he's, like I said, it's been the most healing relationship. So we're doing what we can together. For example, one of the options is we just rented a house in LA. We have a house back in Boston. I'm like, look, we're going to move at your pace. We're not going to go fast. If we need to be slow, let's have two houses for a year. Let's go back and forth. Let everyone be adjusted to this change, right? So I'm really trying to be mindful of who they are, separate. That was my whole, no, I wasn't acceptable for who I was. I
Sure.
don't want to do the same thing. You know what I mean?
This is a new chapter. I mean, you know the quote, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Exactly. That's right. It's a new chapter. And, my husband's open to the journey. It's scary and he moves slower. He's an introvert. I'm an extrovert. That's no small surprise, right? So I'm trying the best to be mindful of his pace and my kids' pace. I have two boys and they're more important to me than my career is. And so I want to move, I want to move at their pace too. That's my job.
So, finding your truth, because sometimes digging in, like going all the way to the bottom,
Yep.
it's scary. It's
Yep.
hard. It's uncomfortable. Maybe it's going to give you the nightmares. But talk about the other side, finding this courage. How do you do it?
Well, it's a lot of work. I mean, healing trauma is a real thing. That's not like a phrase. Sorry, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. It's not five easy steps. It doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? It's been a lot of hard work. One of the things that happens when you experience trauma or something overwhelming is there is an internal disconnect that happens between the parts of you that experience the trauma and your heart and soul. There's a chasm that gets created. So the process of healing is really rebuilding the internal relationships that get fractured as a result of trauma, which requires being with overwhelming emotion, not reliving it, but being with it. So it's a hard process to do that. It really is, but it's so worth it on the end. I'm more myself than I've ever been in my whole life, right? Like that's really cool. And I can navigate now differently. I can stand up for myself. I can speak my truth. If you don't like it, that's really okay because that's about you and not about me. I don't take it personal anymore. So there's a lot of benefit in my experience of doing the hard work. That's why I wrote the book and I want people to know it's possible. Seriously. That's my main goal.
And how did the book change you? Because you had to do a lot of digging.
Yeah, the book changed me. Like so, said 33 years in therapy. The book was so therapeutic, beyond therapy. Because what ended up happening, and this is the way life unfolded for me, is that the last four chapters of the book were written in real time. My dad was failing, he was sick, and I was writing as him and I were repairing a lifelong journey of a tumultuous, conflictual relationship. So he was 84, he was dying. I would go to help take care of him. We'd have these conversations. It was amazing to be able to have that gift of working through a lifetime of conflict, seriously. And I got to this point at the end of being able to actually love someone who harmed me seriously. Like that, I never expected. I don't think that would have ever happened in therapy. I think that happened in the relationship between my dad and I, and that was a gift I didn't expect at all.
Forgiveness. What was it like when you finally forgave him?
Boy, and that's another one of these words. I say the F word, right? Because it's a very activating word for people. Some people get really offended by it. Some people are like, I don't want to forgive. It was too horrible. I'm never going to forgive. I'm like, fine, that's your choice.
Sure.
Other people are like pushed, forgive, forgive, forgive. You got to forgive well before you've healed anything, right? For me, forgiveness happens after healing. Trauma healing is heal what happened to you. Forgiveness is about working through the relationship with somebody who harmed you, right? And it's a choice. What I learned, forgiveness is more about me doing the forgiving than it is about the person I'm forgiving. Like that, I didn't know. That was a surprise. Like, wow, I'm freed up. I feel so much better because I forgave. I'm not holding anger and resentment anymore. So that was kind of surprising to me that it was more about me than what I'm giving to the other person. The second thing, which was kind of a bigger aha for me, was once I really forgave my dad, I then was able to forgive myself. It came back on me for all the things that I had done. I don't know if we don't forgive people who harm us, if we're really going to be able to heal because we've all done harmful things. We've all been harmed. So the secondary gift of forgiveness was it freed up the space for me to be like, you're human too and you did some bad things and it's okay, like I can apologize, I can take responsibility differently, like we're all in this mess of harming and being harmed. And so yeah, it was freeing in a way that feels very good to me, and I didn't expect it at all and I didn't learn it in therapy.
Dr. Frank, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.